Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Dr. Julia Royston of BK Royston Publishing, Royal Media and Publishing, and the coaching community, the Book Business Bosses, helping you get your message to the masses, turn your words into wealth. And welcome to a special edition of Live Your Best Life. And first off, I want to wish every father a happy Father's Day. And some of you may not have biological children yourself, and you may have been a father figure to someone. You're just as important. I take it from me and from those young people that I've taught for many years, uncles, brothers, the man down the street has played an important role in some young person's life. We appreciate you and honor you on today. So I'm super excited to have this all male panel. It's always great to be with the gentlemen and hear their side and their point of view. I have quite a few panels that are all ladies, and so we want to get the gentleman's point of view and talk about fatherhood. And me personally, I had a very strong father. He was very short, but don't play with him. He only stood 4'11", but don't play with him. So super excited. I want to start with we're going to start with Mr. Curtis, David, Marcus, and then Antoine, and we'll go in that order. I want you gentlemen to introduce yourselves, tell us where you're from, and give us a little bit about your where you can find you on social media, what business you're in, if you have one, if you have a foundation, organization, so that we can support. People who listen to Live Your Best Life, you know, to have a pen and paper handy so that you can support, buy their books, buy their products and services, whatever they have to offer. We always want to support our guests right here on Live Your Best Life. Mr. Curtis, go ahead and start us off.
So yeah, I appreciate it. I'm honored. I thank you for having me on your show. Thanks for the exposure. My name is Curtis Winkle. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I work in logistics for the Brinks Company. I'm a proud father of a blended family of 6, 1 in heaven, 4 girls, 1 newborn baby boy. I'm on the board of the Alana Marie Project. I'm in the role of development coordinator, and you can find me at black_dreams on Instagram and Twitter. That's L3LACK_DREAMZ, and that's on Instagram and Twitter.
Awesome.
What's going on, everybody? I am David Bishop out of Cincinnati, Ohio. I am the proud father of 4, son in heaven. I am the founder of Bishop Third Apparel. That Instagram link is Bishop_Third_Apparel. My Facebook is David GQ Bishop the Third. I've been working in distribution for Meyer Distribution for about 15 years. I'm just a proud father, proud husband, and a proud family man.
Awesome. Marcus?
Julia, thank you so much, big sister, for having this phenomenal moment of exposure as well. My name is Marcus Macklin. I am a native of Memphis, Tennessee, but I live now in Hendersonville, Tennessee with my lovely wife and our beautiful 6-month-old son, Jeremiah. And we also have 2 beautiful angel babies by the name of Lyric and Nehemiah as well. So I'm a proud father of 3. I will always say that, a proud father of 3. I don't have a specific foundation, but I am affiliated with King Stan as well with my brothers in Ohio. We serve for community networking and self-healing. So I'm thankful to be a part of that phenomenal organization. You can find me on Facebook at Marcus J. Macklin. That's MACLIN, no K. And also on Instagram at @MacMan88. And I also am I'm in healthcare as well. I'm an occupational therapist, so I work with the geriatric population as well as the pediatric population as well. So I love helping people in all facets.
Awesome. Antoine?
Hello, grace and peace, everybody. I'm Antoine Watson. I am the co-founder of the Alana Marie Project, proud father of 4. I have 3 boys here and a beautiful angel daughter in heaven. The Alana Marie Project was actually created for my daughter, in honor of my daughter, Alana, and we just help support, encourage, and empower families who have also gone through a loss of a child. So we have just really found that helping other people, that there's just healing in that for us as well as for other people. I'm just honored to be here, Julia. Thank you so much for having us. I am on Facebook at Antoine Watson. I can also be found on Instagram, and that is kingdom_minded_poppy. So that's Kingdom Minded Poppy on Instagram. And then to kind of talk about what Marcus mentioned about King Stan. So that's my day job. I'm actually over a fatherhood program that we have created to just kind of create a safe space for Black men. And we are in the business of really trying to help lower these infant mortality rates that unfortunately affect the Black community much more than any other race. So data shows that fathers that are involved in pregnancy, moms are 2 to 3 times less likely to suffer from infant mortality. So, we're just trying to do our part in the community and prayerfully just prevent people from having to go through some of the same heartaches that we had to go through.
Excellent, excellent. Well, first, let me just say I'm proud of each of you as fathers and as men. I'm very proud to present it to the world, literally. And I'm super excited about all the projects and all of the organizations that you all have mentioned. Please take note of them. If you can donate, if you can support, please do so. Share it with others and let other people know. I want to say that right off the top so that we can continue to educate and inform and inspire and empower other people, because the media and society gets us so many negative connotations. And if we don't change the narrative by sharing a different narrative, that's all the next generation and the generations to come will ever see. So I am pleased to be a part of sharing a different narrative of just a tip of the iceberg of 4 phenomenal fathers. So I say thank you for what you're doing in the community. Wives do not come with a manual. We're difficult. We're irritating at times, and sometimes we don't even know what we feeling at one day to the next. So you got grace on my behalf. I'm speaking on behalf of the sisters everywhere. Thank you.
You'll say, Julia, you're not gonna hear us say nothing. We don't
I know.
talking.
I'll say something.
I got you.
I'll say something.
I'm afraid to even nod my head.
I didn't have a biological brother, so y'all didn't turn into my brothers. I got y'all.
Thank you so much, Julia.
I got y'all. So I have to know, when you first found out you were going to be a father, ta-da! Now we have Marcus's video. We have the video where there it is, the pregnancy test, and it is pinned post to his Facebook. So we know, we like, oh my God. But the rest of you, Marcus, you go last this time. Everybody else, we know what your response is. So how did you feel when you first found out the very first child? What did it feel like?
For me, it was just like fireworks going off in my stomach when my girlfriend at the time, told me that we were gonna have a baby. I was super excited on both sides of the spectrum. Being a young parent at the time, just it brought plenty of worries and problems needing to be solved. But it also brought meaning and excitement to, at the time, a floundering young man. My first daughter was very much planned at the time, and I was on cloud 9.
I would say mine was the feeling was so joyful because as you just said, Curtis, she was planned, but then that fear sunk in because you brought bringing a life into the world and don't know you know, what actually is going to transpire after the baby come out of the womb. But my first instinct was to celebrate and to be happy. And it was a joyful moment for me and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time.
Awesome. Antoine?
So for me, I mean, I share the same sentiment as my brothers here. So our daughter Alana was our first, and she was also planned. And although she was planned, I tell you, when I got that call, because my wife, she can't hold water. She couldn't even wait for me to get home. I was at work, and she called me like, "Hey, the test was positive. Like we're having a baby." And I just remember being like very excited, but then it just sunk in like, wow, hold on. Like, I'm actually about to be a father. And that was just like a scary moment too. I always knew I would be a good father. And I don't say that, you know, being cocky or anything, but I just always knew I wanted to be a father, and I knew I always wanted to give it my all. But it's something about when it actually happens and you find out that you're going to be in charge of another life, it hits you a little different. So truthfully, I had a mix of emotions, happy, scared. I was all over the place, but mostly happy.
Marcus?
Now, don't you talk about me again, Julia. You talk about my video now.
No. Go ahead and tell the people who haven't seen the video.
Absolutely. Well, I got to go back to, again, my first, which is my daughter Lyric, which was 8 years ago. I remember literally being at work, and my wife came to my job. She never came to my job for nothing. I mean, she would call, we would talk, and she pulled me to the side and into one of our break rooms, and she said, "I got something to tell you." And she pulled out the pregnancy stick, and I just about lost it. I lost it. It was about a year after we had gotten married, and we asked God, we said, "God, just give us a year to travel, to love on each other, and you know, and then okay, we'll take a child if that's what you want to give us." And that's, I mean, when I tell you almost a year to the date of us being married, that's what He did for us. And I was just like my brothers. I was amazed that God, first of all, answered our prayer of a year. I was immediately nervous. Like, am I apt to be somebody's dad? Like, am I able to be somebody's father? To somebody call me dad? But at the same time, I was excited. Like, I'm about to be somebody's daddy. Like, I had every emotion that you can think of all at the same time. And, you know, I feel like we'll get into this, the next question. But, I mean, all of my nerves with my first child, I'll stop there, were just, it was an emotional roller coaster. But overall, I was just so overjoyed that I felt like the Lord trusted me enough to be somebody's dad.
Wow. Now that is a powerful statement right there. And you know, I you know, just to let that kind of sit and marinate even before I move on to the next question, because that's got to be overwhelming. Because okay, now I'm going to be honest, I'll be transparent. I was raised old school, so the man was the head of the house. The wife is the helpmeet, and we help. The wife was help everybody do everything, but the weight of that is got to be, even before we move on to the rest of it, the weight of knowing that this little human being relies on you. I mean, what is that like?
The heaviness of that weight was a boulder, but it was a boulder that I felt like I could still lift up. It was one of those situations where, you know how they say, literally, they say God won't put more on you than you can bear.
Right.
Sometimes they're more on you than you can bear, where it's really, really heavy. Like, you really kind of want, you really want to push it off of you at times, but it was so much joy. It was like, okay, well, what do I do on his or her first date? How do I teach them how to be this? How do I teach them how to be that? And just understanding, like, okay, if you're led by God, God is going to show you all these things. So just trust him. But that weight was heavy. it's definitely a heavy weight for sure.
Right. Anybody else?
I would say it's always been, this is how I see it, like the child is God's inheritance to us on the earth. And you trying to steward your inheritance very well. But in the same sense, you don't know with your first child. Now, when the others come, it's like the first child was the practice baby, and now you got a little more practice with, you know, what you're doing. But the first one is just like, it's like you're just walking and learning. And one thing I learned about my first child is I would never complain about how my parents raised me again, because I understood. This is one thing I understood about that, is they did the best they could with what they knew. You know what I'm saying? And that's honestly what my first child taught me, is to do the best you can with what you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you know, like Dave, like Mark said, it's heavy, man. It's really heavy, and it was something that I really didn't take into account, and I don't think enough people do. Is it's long. The road is long to completion. It's not this 18 year thing. It's a lifetime. And you know, and like Dave said, your first kid is, you know, all your kids get a different parent, because you grow, you change. You know, your first kid is like we're all working on rough drafts. Yeah. And you don't really know what to expect. You don't really know what to do. And even with my first daughter, I've had other kids after my first daughter, but there comes a time where it was the first time I had an 8-year-old. It was the first time I had a 9-year-old. It was the first time I had a 6-year-old. Like, there is always going to be these firsts that come into play. So regardless of how many kids you have, regardless of how much you change, you're still going through firsts. Even with my second daughter, like, it may be the second time that I had a 7-year-old, but she's so drastically different than my other daughter that I got to throw everything that I knew about my first daughter out the window. So for me, it was just, I wanted to be their hero. I'm very challenge oriented. So I wanted the challenge of, like Marcus said, God given me this gift, God given me this, and having the confidence to be somebody's daddy. And I didn't want to let God down. I didn't want to let, my daughters down. And there was a turning point in my life. My daughter was 4 months old. We were homeless. We were living in my Pontiac G6, and I didn't know how I was going to feed her. I didn't know how I was going to keep her warm. I didn't know anything. And I'm like, vividly, I can remember looking at her in her car seat and be like, yo, her dad's not going out like this. Mm-hmm. Like, no matter what I have to do, whether it's dig ditches, whether it's go back to school, work 90 hours a week, no matter what I had to do, her father is not going to go out like that. And that's when, like, everything clicked. I took everything serious. I took all these micro habits seriously. I took how I talked around her, what I put in front of her, who I put in front of her, where I took her, what I did that could impact her life. I made it a cognizant effort to make sure that everything that I did was for her benefit, as well as mine, as well as her future, our future family. Everything that I did not have that I wanted, because I was homeless. I was sitting in the back of a car. People thought I was crazy, because literally I addressed my life and my relationship with my daughter like I was living in a mansion, like she was, going to go to Stanford, like I was running Google. Like, everything that I did from that moment on was predicated towards her success and my family's success.
Antoine, well, I was just going to say that, to me, that's a great father. That's what, the willingness to do whatever it takes to get the job done and not worry about, that's beneath me. Putting someone else above yourself for their greater good and for the future good of us all, and especially the child. That's what great father. None of us are perfect. So good, bad, or ugly, but that's what great fathers do. That's what great mothers do. We do what we have to do. Antoine, I'm sorry.
Necessary. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's just a prime example of being selfless, right? When you become a father, at least for me, and I know I can say the same for these guys, you kind of put yourself back a notch, and everything becomes about that child. And for me personally, like I mentioned earlier, I always knew I would be a great father. And it's not that I always had like a great example. While I love my dad to death and we have a great relationship now, but that wasn't always our story. You know, my dad is a recovering drug addict. So half my life he was in and out of rehab and, you know, trying to get his life together. And he has such a great success story. He's able to flip that around and turn it around and become successful and become a really good entrepreneur. But then it took away from that bonding time. He was able to provide, you know, financially, but he wasn't there. So when it comes to like looking at the definition of a father, I looked at, you know, okay, I want to be able to provide like my dad was able to, but also have to have that balance of being able to be present. Because truthfully, when I look back on my childhood, I look at the countless sacrifices that my mother made to be at every single game. And if she couldn't be at a game, it was because she's working a second job to keep me in those sports or keep me there. So I just always knew like I was going to do whatever it took to just be present. You know, yes, I want to be able to financially provide for my child, but I know that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is me being there. That's what they're going to remember. Those are the opportunities where I get to teach and help mold them into, you know, just valuable people to society. So just, the weight is heavy, but I just knew like I was built for this. I saw what not to do, and I just redirected everything and put that energy toward my child. So.
Exactly. And you're going to break the mold. We're going to take a break right here, but I did want to say that I taught a young lady one time and her father didn't make it to like the junior ring ceremony and she was devastated. And he came with money and he said, "I'm sorry, I'm late." And she threw that $100 bill dead in his face. She was like, "I don't care nothing about the money. It's because you weren't sitting out there in the stands." So the presence is definitely more important than the presence. And we'll be right back. And we're back. I hope you're enjoying these fathers because they are phenomenal. And it is incredible. And their children are very fortunate to have them as fathers and all of that good stuff. It makes me miss my daddy too. He's been gone in heaven since 2010, but I'm glad to know that there are next generation fathers who are striving to be the type of fathers that they want to see and to instill in the next generation. So this is a little tough part. That a question that I want to definitely ask. We normally hear the woman's side, and there's been all kinds of programs and all type of uh, documentaries about the woman's side of losing a child. Of course, they're carrying the child in the womb, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the fathers don't feel it just as much as the mother does. And so I want you to, because I know that Antoine, you all's organization and your documentary, I've seen bits and pieces of it. It's phenomenal. It's a wonderful, safe place. And I want this to be a safe place for you to discuss how that really felt for you as a father when you realize your baby's gone to heaven and you're not getting ready to take the baby home from the hospital.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's one of those things, Julia, that I just remember it vividly. You know, I just remember my wife not feeling all that well and going to the hospital just for like a routine checkup. Um, and then it turned into, hey, we have to admit you, to just a couple hours later, like, we have to induce you. Your baby's life is at risk and your wife life is at risk. And that's just not the situation anybody wants to be put in. So for me, I automatically went into protector mode, right? I had to protect my wife. I had to be that strong boulder for her to lean on. But unfortunately, with that, I was eaten up inside, right? Because I'm putting on this facade of like strength for her, but at the same token, I wasn't really able to address my own concerns and needs. So, you know, quickly, our story progressed. Our daughter was born. She was given a 10% chance to survive the delivery. Thankfully, she did survive the delivery, and we had 36 hours with her. But I look at this as I once heard a sermon, and it said that the season of death and the season of destiny can also kind of feel the same sometimes. And, you know, for me, it's like in that moment, we were being planted, not buried. You know, when you die, you bury something and there's no coming up from that, but we were being planted and rooted for something greater. You know, unfortunately, it had to be the loss of my daughter to make me stronger, but I believe that was all part of God's plan for me to be able to reach more families. But that's another thing too that helped, but really just to kind of stick with where I was at that time, it was tough because I had to be strong for my wife, but I neglected my own grief.
Right. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, not to take away for anything anybody else experienced. So this is just my experience, and unfortunately, I don't think there's words to articulate what it means to lose a child. Devastation, heartbroken, lost, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, life altering are all, in my estimation, sugarcoating what you will feel or what I felt. But, you know, there's no good place to stand in a slaughterhouse. So you realize that you still have obligations, work, life. You know, I had other kids. I had a wife that needed me, that were dependent on me. So you try to be the most reliable person in the room. And Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who was a prisoner in a Soviet work camp, he wrote the Gulag Archipelago. He made a statement in it, and he said, not everything is my fault, but everything's my responsibility, which is very deep and layered. And the answer requires many, many hours of explanation. But that's how I chose to address the situation. I took on the challenge of responsibility. In the words of Jordan Peterson, you know, I kind of chose to slay the dragon of chaos in its infancy, in its own lair, before it got out of control, because, you know, it was never short on me to know the statistics of a married couple who, you know, unfortunately don't tend to last when the loss of a child happens. And my wife was too important for me to not take on those challenges and not take on those responsibilities at the chance that I would lose her. So, you know, that's for me, that's just how I dealt with it. That's the way that I chose to respond.
My response was, I went into hyperdrive. I was just in do it all mode. And it felt like, you know, we went to the doctor on a Monday, and like a week later, our son, we was at the hospital, and our son didn't have a heartbeat. And the hardest thing, as I shared with my brothers before, was the date. Around my birthday, you know, baby's supposed to be born around Thanksgiving. So every time you think about those dates, you think this is the day that you're supposed to be celebrating with your son. But like I said, I went in a hyperdrive. First thing I did was I went out and drunk, but it wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't satisfying. It was just I was trying to numb the pain. But as the fella spoke before, as I matured, I understood like there was a greater purpose, that your child has went to be with the Father. And that's what really launched my life out into Bible college and to meeting and relationships, because losing a child is never fun. It's one of the hardest things that I've ever had to deal with. And you just think there's always that question of what if, how does my son look? And there was also the scary part of, they told us, you know, when you lose a child in the womb, there may be deficiencies with your other children, or there's a possibility that you won't be able to have other kids. And our story was, our testimony is that we beat the odds. There's nothing wrong with my other two daughters. They come out perfectly fine. They're loving, and we grew as a family. I think you said it also, like, Curtis, there's a lot of people who don't make it through marriage after infant death. And Lord and behold, that's not our story. So we are still winning, if that answers that question.
Marcus?
Yes, I just want to thank God for all my brothers, like, to be this transparent, in their losses and their strength. But if I can be quite honest, I didn't have much strength in the situations that was dealt to myself. I unfortunately had to go through this twice. I think that and I never compare. I don't want to say that I'm comparing and contrasting my situation with anybody else's. But I would say it was a pain that if I had a worst enemy, I wouldn't wish that pain upon them at all. And if you know me, to know me is to love me. So I don't have any enemies at all. But if I had one and I wanted that person to just suffer, I would still say, don't give this to them. Because this pain was a gut-wrenching pain. It felt like literally life was snatched out of me. And of course, life died within my wife. But although, like you said, Julia, the woman carries in the womb, but I feel like we as men, we carry in the heart and in the mind. So I felt like a part of my heart completely died.
Sure.
I felt like a part of my mind completely died. You talk about numbness. You talk about just not understanding what life was, how to breathe. There was times where I would break down at rehearsal and I would just scream and cry, not even realizing that I was doing it. And people would have to console me, like, he's okay. Y'all just pray. But it was like I was thrown into a league that I never signed up for. And I felt like if I had only prayed more, if I had only fasted more, if I hadn't done that sin, or if I hadn't lived that lifestyle, maybe then I would still have my baby. And I, like my brother Antoine was saying, I vividly remember I was a CNA at the time, and this was with Lyric, and we had started to get really bad reports after about 16 weeks gestationally. And for me, being a man of faith, here I go, but no, I believe God. No, ain't nothing gonna happen to her. She's fine. She's gonna be healthy, whole, ain't nothing gonna happen. So my wife, not understanding, but not realizing, but after a while, my wife told me, like, the Lord showed her she was going to lose her. I didn't want to take that. Like, no, you're not going to tell me, God, you did this for me. We asked you for a year. You gave us a year. You gave us the baby, and now you have to take her back. What do you mean? Like, I don't understand. Like, none of that made sense to me. So I remember being a CNA, helping one of my favorite patients with the shower at the time, and I got the phone call, and my heart stopped. And my patient was like, "Go to your wife." Go. I said, "No, I have to finish helping you." So in all of my pain and agony, knowing that my little baby girl was no longer living on the inside of my wife, I decided to serve and still help somebody else. I should have, or I could have stopped and did what I needed to do to go be with my wife, which I did eventually. But it was just so many things going on in my head, and to know that the first time it happened, we had to go through full labor. My wife had to have a full epidural. My wife had to go through all the contractions. Everything that a couple goes through to produce a living child, being on a unit, hearing babies cry, and knowing I had to walk out of that hospital empty-handed.
Yeah.
Hurt me to the core,
Sure.
Julia.
Sure.
It hurt me to the core, and I was mad.
Yeah.
I didn't go into, I gotta protect this. I was trying just to breathe.
Yes.
I was trying to find breath to live because not only was my wife devastatingly hurt, I was dead on the inside. Mm-hmm. So now you fast forward 4 years, because it took us 4 years to even think about trying again. And here we go. Here goes Nehemiah. We happy. We in there. Like, okay, God, you did it. This is it. This is the promise. Had a live gender reveal December, right before Christmas. Day after Christmas, she thought it's fine.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay. We good. She's fine. Get to the hospital. Had to have my baby in a hat in the toilet because she miscarried. Mm. Two times. A pain that I wouldn't wish on a worst enemy, y'all. But because we had God as our foundation. Now, was it easy? No, absolutely not. But I had to also get to the point where I kept praying. I didn't stop talking to God. Although I was mad at God.
Yeah.
Can I say that again, Julia? Although I was mad at God, I apologize for the volume, but I was mad.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But I knew from my foundation, the word says, you can be angry, but sin not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was angry with him, but I never cursed him. I never said, forget you, God. Yeah. I won't serve you, God. I never said that. I kept serving. Yeah. I kept serving as a praise and worship leader. I kept serving as a youth minister. I kept doing all of these things. And it took me really listening. Because sometimes we talk at God and we don't listen to God.
Yeah.
But it took me to shut my mouth, stop crying, and listen to God. And God told me it's never easy being the example.
Wow.
And I told myself, and I'm going to stop because I know we got to move on. But I told myself, you know what? I asked for an answer and you gave it to me. So don't question God when he gives you the answer that it may not feel right, but it's the answer that God wants to give you. And I said, but it's moments like this. Now we're going to fast forward just a little bit longer. And here goes Jeremiah. My promise, my legacy, he's here.
Yeah.
And even though it was hard to get him here as well,
yeah, I
believe that he will be healthy, whole, and thriving. Born 25 weeks and 5 days gestationally, came out crying and from an emergency C-section. Yes, he's here. So what am I saying? Yeah, it was hard. It was real hard, but I had to hold on to the promise.
Yep.
What happens when you let go of your promise? You have to hold tight to that promise. It didn't say it was going to happen tomorrow or the next day, but 8 years later, the year of new beginnings for us. Because my mindset had to change in ways. Not saying that anything was happening then. I'm saying I had to hold on to God's unchanging hand.
And you can't get no more transparent than that. You can't get no more real than that. And I appreciate you all for your transparency. I really do, because very rarely do we hear from the man's side of it, from the father's side of it. And I appreciate it, because that's God. I can only imagine. I've never been pregnant. I have no biological children, but I cannot even imagine. I was devastated because I was there with the gender reveal with TT and Marcus. Yay! No, and no. But God, who is
hard. It was hard.
It was awful. It's awful for those standing by who can't help. And if you're like me, who's a fixer and wants to fix it and repair it, and come on, we can, and solutions, and no, you can't do it.
And that was the thing too, Julia, real quick. And people, like you said, you want to fix things. Even me, because as a husband, as a man, I wanted to fix. Like, what do I do? How do I do? I had to be present.
Yeah.
And for people who didn't know what to say, they didn't have to say anything in our lives. They were just there.
Yeah. Well, there's no words. I mean, literally, when those kinds of things happen, there's no words. And most of the time, the words that you do utter are so inadequate. And so I usually opt for no words, I'm praying. You know, when there's some things that are posted that are so devastating for the person, there's just no words. Only God can heal that. Only God can comfort that. I mean, there's just no words in the human language that can meet that need. But
and
we thank God that, he allowed it to happen and all that good stuff. I mean, it's just, it doesn't feel good, but remember, he said, it's all working for our good. We'll be right back after this. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our time. I have one more closing question I have for each of these gentlemen. This has been phenomenal for me. And if I hope that it has blessed you and encouraged you and inspired you to know that there are some phenomenal gentlemen out there who are making life better for their families each and every day. Sometimes good, sometimes it don't work, sometimes bad, but they get up every day and make it happen. And we appreciate you. So my last question that I really want to ask is, so what do you want to teach your child? What do you want your children to know? I've been to Antoine and Marquise's house, them three little boys. Woo, that's excitement, entertainment. Woo! Oh, fleek. Like, woo-wee. Okay, I'm old, yes. But excitement and entertainment, and the pictures are wonderful. T-ball and hats and the uniforms, they're adorable. But what do you want to instill in your child? Now, Marcus's baby JJ, he got an attitude, and he's 6 months. Just, oh gosh, I mean, little elbow, like, hey, here I am posing. I mean,
all day,
like all day,
all day.
6 months poses with their fist on their chin, like, hey, what's up?
Y'all just keep them lifted in prayer, please. Y'all just keep them lifted in prayer.
Like, you're 6 months old, dude. You got an attitude at 6 months. Like, wow. But what do you want them to know? What do you want them to learn? What do you want them to know when you're old and gray and the grandbabies are around the bed and you see everybody all grown up and graduated from high school and college? What do you want them to know? What do you want them to be able to say that daddy said?
Well, I'll speak really, really quickly. Of course, to my angels in heaven, I always want them to look down on me, on daddy, and just be proud of the man that God created. Like in every area of my life, I just want them to be proud and say, that's my heaven. That's my earthly daddy right there. I'm rooting for him always. Like that's what I always think about. Like my brother Curtis was saying, just what they see, whatever they see me in heaven, I want them to think about that. But to all three of my babies, I want them to always remember that life may have thrown me a lot of things to make me battered and bruised, but I was never easily broken. And so I want them to take that, because I'm not speaking anything ill over their life. I want them to be free in life. I want them to love and laugh, and because they're gonna have all of those situations. But I know going through life, that life is gonna have some circumstances that will try to get you down, but you cannot quit. Don't ever quit. Don't ever give up on anything unless the Father himself tells you to quit that thing, whatever that thing is. Unless he tells you to do it, keep going.
Yeah.
Like always keep going and live your life to glorify the Father, which is in heaven.
Yep. Who's next?
I would say for me, with my daughters and legacy is, what I've learned about legacy and COVID is you have to be present in the legacy, right? I can be out building so many things and not have my children around. That's not creating a legacy to me. That's going out doing what I want to do. But to bring them alongside of me and to show them and molding them the things, the family core, the family value. I said this earlier, the family inheritance. We've seen so many people waste a family inheritance because they wasn't part of the building or the culture of building the legacy up. But that's one thing I want to install in them is to get everything out of me. And I think that's one thing like COVID did, was it slowed the world down so I can actually see where my children comprehension level was at, where their skills was at. And I'll learn from them just as they learn from me. So our legacy, family legacy, will be just to love, share, and value each other's presence.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, well said by everybody. For me, it's just, you know, I come from a very broken family, a very broken background. And for them, I just want them to know that I love them very much, that I'm proud and honored to be their father, and things that I want them to know just throughout their life. Is that hard work is the greatest equalizer, and that their passions are obtainable. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but they're obtainable. And you know, we're all creatures of story. And the first step to that is knowing what your story is. And to know that, you know, the true author is the person that strives to manifest that in their life. The Bible says, seek first the kingdom of God and everything be given unto you. So for them is to aim at the highest goal that they can think of for themselves, that they can imagine and shoot for it. And for my son, like, that is my legacy. You know, for him and my whole family and my daughters as well. You know, we're built different. You know, we like Ford. You know, we built tough. And you know, for him, like, you know, his last name means something. You know, who his daddy is, it means something. Who he's gonna be means something. You know, the dad, you know, the father that he gonna be, the brother that he gonna be, the husband that he gonna be, and that means something. And to take that serious, and you know, I mean, that's about it.
Antoine?
Yeah, like Curtis said, I feel like everybody did such an excellent job. But I kind of go back to what David mentioned, right? Building a legacy. You know, I'm a product of a child who didn't really get to watch my father build a legacy. I did, but from afar, you know, and he built this empire of a business. And even a few years ago, he was like, oh, I want to pass this off to you. But I was never a part of the process to really see how to make that sustainable. But what that's taught me in life is anything that I'm building, to make sure that my kids are there, to make sure that they are a part of the process. You know, like Curtis said, our last name means something. You know, when people hear my name, they look at the character, they look at the man that I am, and that's what I want to, you know, follow. I want them to do that even greater than me. You know, I want the name to mean even more of something beyond me, and that's with my three sons, who I'm very blessed to be able to continue the Watson legacy, but just making sure that my children are part of the process, and just knowing that I love them dearly. You know, I may be tough on them at times, but I wouldn't be doing them any favors by not giving them the reality of this real world. Exactly. Because it's tough out here. Nobody's going to hand you anything. You have to work for everything that you have. And I've started instilling that into them now. You know, they leave the TV on, they leave the lights on. I'm like, guys, you know, this costs money. Like, nothing in this house is free. You guys got all these toys. I remind them how fortunate and how blessed they really are. And we usually around Christmas time, we will go through their old toys, things that are in good shape that they don't play with. And I'm like, you know, there are kids that don't have toys, that parents can't afford to buy toys. So I'm trying to instill the spirit of giving as well. So now we've gone, you know, 2 Christmases, maybe 3, where we've given old toys away, because I'm like, you're going to get blessed with some more new toys. Let's bless these other families. So now they are eager to go to their toy box and fill up a bin of toys to give off to, you know, other kids that may not be able to. So yeah, that's what I would want them to know, to keep that spirit of giving, and then just including them in the process of the legacy that I'm trying to build.
Excellent, and that's true. Having that legacy is really important. Now, I had two younger sisters, so it was all about, you know, and my dad, whew, he ruled with an iron fist, but he was loving and wonderful. But he made sure, he said, trust God, trust me, and trust yourself, and you'll be fine. So, fortunately for me, Antoine, I got to see that built. My dad's janitor service built, and from the ground up. I started answering the phone when I was 9 years old. Scott Bright of Louisville, can I help you? We had pencil and pad by every phone in the house. When I turned 14, I got a Selectric 2 typewriter, and I was typing letters and contracts when I was a freshman in high school. So I saw that thing built, and I did the invoices, and I know what it looked like. So therefore, you know, entrepreneurship is in my blood, but it came from my daddy. My mama, she was right there with him. But having a strong dad has just been, it meant everything to me. And I'm married to a strong man. You know, the weak guys, wishy-washy, I could push over. I'm like, no, I'm not. I wouldn't even date him. I'm like, oh no, you can't stand up to my dad's test. I ain't even dating you. Oh no, you ain't gonna get back with me and lay the law down sometime. Oh no, no, you're not. As they say, you're not worthy. No, I'm joking. But it is so important. The father position is so important. And I am honored to bring you a group of fathers who are young and examples, and I'm greatly appreciative. The next generation is still bright. No matter what the media tells you, no matter what society says, the future is still bright. The family is still yet alive and moving forward. And we're grateful. Thank you, gentlemen, for being my guest. I appreciate you and thank God for you. Happy Father's Day. May you enjoy it, whether it's scribbles on a piece of paper, whether it's a big gift, or whether it's just Happy Father's Day. And as they say, a juicy, drooling grin. No matter what that is, enjoy it because you deserve it. I'm Dr. Julia Royston, praying today, tomorrow, and always that you live your best life. Bye-bye.